The morning fog rolled across the training grounds at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado as Marcus Rivera adjusted his gear one final time. 23 years of service, countless missions across 4 continents, and enough classified operations to fill a small library had brought him to this moment. Today marked his first day as an instructor for the Navy's most elite fighting force, and the weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders like familiar armor. Marcus had earned his place through blood, sweat, and determination that bordered on obsession. Growing up in East Los Angeles, he'd watched his neighborhood consumed by violence while dreaming of something bigger than the cramped apartment he shared with his mother and 3 younger siblings. The Navy had been his escape route, and the SEALs had become his calling. The training facility buzzed with activity as new recruits arrived for what would either make or break their military careers. Marcus observed them with the practiced eye of a warrior who'd seen too many young men fail to understand the true cost of earning the trident. Some carried themselves with cocky confidence, others with quiet determination, but all shared that hungry look of wanting to prove they belonged among the elite. Chief Rivera called out Commander Thompson, approaching with a clipboard and the bearing of a man who'd spent decades molding ordinary sailors into extraordinary warriors. Ready for your first batch of would-be frogmen? Marcus nodded, his dark eyes scanning the group of recruits assembling in formation. Always ready, sir, though I suspect some of these kids think they know what they're signing up for. Thompson chuckled, a sound that held more irony than humor. They never do. Speaking of surprises, we got an interesting addition to your class today. Before Marcus could ask what he meant, a figure emerged from the administrative building that made him do a double take. Walking with purposeful strides across the compound was a woman, tall and lean with auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She wore the same training uniform as the male recruits, but something in her movement suggested a background that went beyond typical military preparation. That's Sarah Chun, Thompson explained, noting Marcus's surprised expression. Former Marine Corps Force Recon, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, and a recommendation from her commanding officer that called her the finest warrior he'd ever had the privilege to serve alongside. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Women had been integrated into combat roles throughout the military, but the SEALs remained one of the last bastions of male exclusivity. Times were changing, and apparently those changes had arrived at his doorstep. She's here for evaluation, Thompson continued. Higher-ups want to see if she can meet our standards. Fair warning, Rivera, she's already passed the initial screening that eliminates 60% of male candidates. Sarah approached their position with measured steps, her green eyes taking in every detail of her surroundings. When she stopped before them and rendered a crisp salute, Marcus noticed the calluses on her hands and the way she balanced on the balls of her feet, telltale signs of someone accustomed to violence and prepared for action. Gunnery Sergeant Chun reporting for training, sir, she said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd already proven herself under fire. Thompson returned the salute. Welcome to Coronado, Gunny. This is Chief Rivera, your primary instructor. He'll be responsible for determining whether you have what it takes to earn the trident. Marcus studied her for a moment, noting the intelligence behind her eyes and the way she met his gaze without flinching. He'd learned to read people quickly in his line of work. It often meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Sarah Chun radiated the kind of quiet competence that came from surviving situations where others hadn't. Gunny, he acknowledged with a nod. Hope you're ready for the hardest 6 months of your life. I'm ready for whatever you can throw at me, Chief, she replied without hesitation. The first weeks of training unfolded with brutal efficiency. Marcus had designed his program to break down every preconception the recruits held about themselves and their capabilities. Physical conditioning pushed human endurance beyond normal limits, while psychological pressure tested mental resilience under extreme stress. Of the 43 candidates who'd started, only 19 remained by the end of the first month. Sarah not only survived, but excelled, consistently ranking in the top 3 performers across all metrics. She carried her share of the boat during surf torture, completed obstacle courses faster than men twice her size, and never complained during the endless hours of physical punishment that defined SEAL training. But it was during weapons training that Marcus first noticed something unusual about her background. The class was learning advanced marksmanship techniques, and Marcus was demonstrating proper breathing patterns for long-range shooting when Sarah raised her hand. "Chief, with respect, the technique you're showing works well for standard engagements, but for extreme long-range shooting, say, beyond 800 meters in variable wind conditions, there's a modified breathing pattern that provides better stability." Marcus paused, studying her carefully. "Is that so, Gunny? And where might you have learned about extreme long-range techniques?" "Previous training, Chief. Just thought it might be relevant." He handed her his rifle, a customized M4 with advanced optics. "Show me." Sarah accepted the weapon with familiar ease, checking the chamber and adjusting the scope with movements that spoke of extensive experience. She settled into a prone position, her body forming perfect angles for stability and recoil management. When she fired, the distant target showed a grouping that impressed even Marcus's experienced eye. "That's some quality shooting, Gunny," he said, accepting the rifle back. "Mind sharing where you picked up those skills?" "Here and there, Chief. Marines taught me well." But Marcus knew Marine training, and what he just witnessed went beyond standard military instruction. Sarah's technique showed influences from specialized schools that most Marines never saw. He filed the information away for later consideration. Training intensified as weeks turned into months. Hell Week arrived with its promise of 5.5 days of continuous physical and mental torment designed to separate those with genuine commitment from those merely seeking glory. Sleep deprivation, hypothermia, and constant physical exertion created a crucible where only the strongest survived. By Wednesday of Hell Week, 12 candidates remained. Sarah had earned the grudging respect of her classmates through sheer competence and an unwillingness to quit when others faltered. During a particularly brutal surf torture session, she helped carry a struggling teammate to safety, earning Marcus's attention for her commitment to the team over individual achievement. Thursday night brought the breaking point for most candidates. Exhausted, hypothermic, and pushed beyond normal human endurance, recruits began dropping out at an accelerated rate. Marcus watched Sarah during these darkest hours, noting how she seemed to find reserves of strength when others crumbled. Her background clearly contained experiences that had prepared her for this level of suffering. Friday morning found only 8 candidates still standing. Sarah among them, her uniform salt-stained and her face drawn with fatigue, but her eyes still holding that fierce determination Marcus had noticed on the first day. She'd proven herself capable of enduring anything the instructors could devise. The final test of Hell Week came in the form of a mission simulation that combined all the skills they'd learned while operating under extreme fatigue and stress. Teams were tasked with infiltrating a mock enemy compound, gathering intelligence, and extracting without detection, all while dealing with opposition forces played by veteran SEALs who showed no mercy. Marcus assigned Sarah to a 4-man team with 3 of the strongest remaining candidates. Their mission required them to breach a heavily defended position, locate specific intelligence materials, and escape using predetermined extraction routes. The opposition would use every dirty trick in the book to stop them. The exercise began at midnight under conditions that simulated a real-world operation behind enemy lines. Sarah's team moved through the darkness with practiced stealth, communicating through hand signals and demonstrating the tactical awareness that separated special operations forces from conventional troops. When they encountered the first checkpoint, Sarah surprised her teammates by producing a small device that allowed them to monitor enemy communications. The intel gave them crucial information about patrol patterns and defensive positions that hadn't been covered in their briefing materials. "Where did that come from?" whispered Rodriguez, one of her teammates. "Always be prepared," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible even at close range. They penetrated the compound's outer perimeter using techniques that showed Sarah's familiarity with advanced infiltration methods. Her movements suggested training beyond what any of them had received, and her tactical decisions consistently proved correct as they navigated increasingly dangerous situations. The intelligence-gathering phase required them to crack a secure container using tools provided in their kit. While her teammates struggled with the mechanism, Sarah completed the task in under 90 seconds, retrieving the target documents with efficiency that made Marcus take notice from his observation position. The extraction proved most challenging as opposition forces had identified their presence and were actively hunting them. Sarah led her team through a series of evasion maneuvers that demonstrated intimate knowledge of counter-surveillance techniques rarely taught at their level of training. When they finally reached the extraction point, all 4 team members were present and accounted for, an achievement that only 2 of the 3 teams managed. Sarah's leadership and tactical expertise had been instrumental in their success. After Hell Week concluded, Marcus found himself studying Sarah's service record more carefully. Her official file showed an impressive but unremarkable Marine career, but certain details didn't add up. Training schools that weren't typically available to Force Recon Marines, commendations that used language suggesting classified operations, and gaps in her deployment timeline that coincided with periods when Special Operations Forces were conducting sensitive missions. During a rare break between training cycles, Marcus approached Sarah as she cleaned her gear in the team room. The other candidates had finished and departed, leaving them alone among the familiar smell of gun oil and determination. "Gunny, can I ask you something?" Sarah looked up from the rifle she was meticulously maintaining. "Of course, Chief. Your background seems to include some training that goes beyond standard Marine programs. Want to share where you picked up those skills?" Sarah continued working on her weapon, her movements precise and economical. "Marines provided excellent training, Chief. Plus, I've always been good at picking things up quickly." Marcus sat down across from her, recognizing the deflection for what it was. "I've been doing this for a long time, Sarah. Seen a lot of operators come through these doors. What you displayed during that exercise wasn't something you pick up from standard military training." She met his gaze directly, and for a moment, Marcus saw something deeper than the composed exterior she normally presented. "Some experiences teach you things that don't appear in official records, Chief." Before Marcus could probe further, the training room door opened and Commander Thompson entered, carrying a folder that bore classification markings Marcus recognized. "Chief Rivera, I need to speak with you privately," Thompson said, his tone suggesting the conversation would involve information beyond Sarah's clearance level. Marcus excused himself and followed Thompson to his office, where the commander closed the door and activated a white noise generator that indicated they were about to discuss sensitive material. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room," Thompson began, settling behind his desk. Gunnery Sergeant Chin's background includes elements that aren't reflected in her standard service record. He opened a classified folder and removed several documents that made Marcus's eyebrows rise. Photos of Sarah, in civilian clothes, meeting with individuals Marcus recognized as high-level CIA operatives. After-action reports from missions and locations that had never officially hosted U.S. military personnel. Training certifications from schools that didn't appear on any public military education lists. "She's agency?" Marcus asked, though the evidence already provided the answer. Was agency. Paramilitary operations officer for 5 years before returning to conventional military service. Her Marine record is real, but it only tells part of the story. The woman you've been training has experience with operations that make our most classified missions look like training exercises. Marcus studied the photographs, noting details he'd missed before. Sarah's tactical awareness suddenly made perfect sense, as did her familiarity with equipment and techniques beyond normal military training. "Why is she here?" he asked. Thompson leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "Because someone very high up the chain believes the SEALs need operators with her specific skill set. The threat environment is changing, and traditional military approaches aren't always sufficient for the challenges we're facing. And my job is to determine if she can integrate with the teams." Your job is to determine if she can meet SEAL standards while bringing her unique capabilities to bear. If she can, she'll be the first woman to earn the trident. If she can't, Thompson shrugged. Then, we'll have learned something valuable about the limits of integration. Marcus returned to training with a new perspective on Sarah Chun. Her performance during subsequent exercises took on different meaning when viewed through the lens of her true background. Skills that had seemed impressive for a Marine became merely competent for someone with CIA training. More importantly, he began to understand why she'd been sent to them. The military was facing threats that required operators capable of thinking beyond traditional parameters. Sarah's background had prepared her for exactly that kind of challenge. The remaining weeks of the first phase passed quickly, with the candidate pool shrinking to 6 individuals who showed genuine potential for completing the program. Sarah continued to excel, but Marcus noticed she was carefully moderating her performance to avoid standing out too dramatically from her peers. During a particularly challenging navigation exercise, he observed her deliberately taking a longer route to avoid finishing too far ahead of the other candidates. Her tactical awareness was so advanced that she had to consciously dial it back to maintain the illusion of learning skills for the first time. The revelation created an interesting dynamic. Marcus found himself wondering whether he should push her harder to see her true capabilities or maintain the fiction that she was just another talented candidate working to prove herself worthy of the trident. The answer came during a live-fire exercise that went wrong in ways no simulation could replicate. The team was practicing close-quarters combat scenarios when a malfunction in the training facility's electronic systems caused confusion about which areas were designated as friendly and which contained opposition forces. In the chaos that followed, Sarah displayed the kind of instantaneous tactical assessment that saved lives. Without hesitation, she identified the real threat, neutralized it using techniques that definitely weren't part of standard SEAL training, and organized the evacuation of wounded personnel with efficiency that came from experience dealing with actual emergencies. When the exercise concluded and everyone was accounted for, Marcus found Sarah calmly cleaning her weapon as if nothing unusual had happened. But he'd seen enough to understand that Sarah Chun was operating at a level far beyond what her official record suggested. "That was some quality work in there, Gunny," he said. Sarah looked up, her green eyes holding a hint of wariness. "Just doing my job, Chief." "Your job," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "Right." The foundation had been laid for a relationship that would challenge everything Marcus thought he knew about training elite warriors. Sarah's presence was forcing him to reconsider assumptions about capability, integration, and the changing nature of special operations in an evolving threat environment. As the first phase of training concluded, Marcus realized he was no longer simply evaluating whether Sarah could meet SEAL standards. Instead, he was discovering whether the SEALs were ready for operators like Sarah Chun, whose capabilities extended far beyond anything their traditional training had prepared them to understand or utilize. The real test was just beginning, and both Marcus and Sarah would soon discover that earning the trident was only the first step in a journey that would take them into situations where her unique background would prove either invaluable or dangerous, possibly both. The sun set over Coronado as Marcus completed his daily reports, noting Sarah's continued exceptional performance, while wondering what challenges the next phase of training would reveal about the woman who was quietly revolutionizing his understanding of what it meant to be a special operations warrior. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new revelations, and new opportunities for both instructor and student to discover the true limits of their capabilities. The journey toward earning the trident was far from over, and Marcus suspected the most interesting discoveries lay ahead. The second phase of SEAL training brought new challenges that tested candidates in ways the first phase could only hint at. Marcus watched Sarah navigate these obstacles with growing fascination and occasional concern. Her performance continued to exceed standards, but he was beginning to notice subtle signs that she was holding back significant capabilities. Advanced dive training presented the first major test. Operating underwater in zero visibility while managing complex equipment required a level of spatial awareness and calm that eliminated many otherwise capable candidates. Marcus observed from the safety boat as Sarah and the 5 remaining candidates descended into the murky waters off Point Loma. The exercise required them to navigate to a sunken target, plant simulated explosives, and return to the surface following predetermined routes while avoiding detection by opposing divers. Failure could result in actual drowning, making this one of the most dangerous phases of training. Sarah emerged from the water first, her equipment properly secured, and her breathing controlled despite spending nearly an hour in conditions that would panic most people. When Marcus checked her work, he found she not only completed the primary mission, but had also identified and documented several security vulnerabilities in the exercise design that hadn't been apparent to the instructors. Interesting observations, Gunny, Marcus said, reviewing her detailed report. Mind explaining how you spotted these issues? Sarah toweled off her gear with practiced efficiency. Sometimes a different perspective helps identify problems others might miss, Chief. Over the following weeks, Marcus began testing Sarah in ways that went beyond standard curriculum. During language training, he was unsurprised to discover she spoke fluent Mandarin and passable Arabic. Her hand-to-hand combat skills exceeded anything taught in Marine training, incorporating techniques from disciplines he recognized as favored by intelligence operatives. The breakthrough came during a psychological evaluation exercise designed to test candidates' resistance to interrogation. Each trainee was subjected to stress positions, sensory deprivation, and psychological pressure intended to simulate capture by hostile forces. Most candidates broke within 6 hours, providing information that would compromise their teammates in real-world situations. Sarah lasted 18 hours before offering any substantive responses, and even then, the information she provided was carefully crafted to mislead her interrogators while appearing to comply with their demands. Marcus watched through one-way glass as she systematically fed false intelligence to her questioners, maintaining her cover story even under extreme duress. That's not something you learn in boot camp, commented Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the psychologist overseeing the exercise. She's been trained to resist interrogation by people who knew what they were doing. When Sarah finally emerged from the simulation, she showed signs of physical exhaustion, but maintained perfect mental composure. Marcus met her in the recovery room, where candidates typically spent several hours processing the psychological impact of the exercise. "How are you feeling, Gunny?" Sarah accepted a cup of coffee from the medical technician. "Ready for the next challenge, Chief." Marcus studied her carefully, noting the absence of the 1,000-yard stare that usually followed extended psychological pressure. "That was a tough exercise. Most people need some time to decompress after what you just experienced." "I appreciate the concern, Chief, but I'm fine." The casual dismissal of 18 hours of psychological torture bothered Marcus more than he cared to admit. He'd undergone similar training himself, and knew the lasting impact such experiences could have on even the strongest individuals. Sarah's apparent immunity suggested a level of conditioning that went far beyond military preparation. Later that evening, Marcus found himself reviewing Sarah's performance metrics in his office. Every measurement exceeded minimum standards, most by significant margins. Her tactical knowledge was encyclopedic, her physical conditioning was exceptional, and her psychological resilience was unlike anything he'd encountered in 2 decades of training elite operators. Commander Thompson knocked and entered without waiting for permission, carrying a fresh folder of classified documents. "We need to talk Chun again," he said, settling into the chair across from Marcus's desk. "What's the situation?" Thompson opened the folder and removed a photograph that made Marcus's blood run cold. The image showed Sarah in civilian clothes, standing next to a man Marcus recognized as Dmitry Volkov, a Russian intelligence officer who'd been responsible for several high-profile assassinations in Eastern Europe. "This was taken in Prague 18 months ago," Thompson explained. According to CIA records, Chun was running a complex penetration operation against Russian intelligence networks. The mission resulted in the disruption of 3 separate plots against American interests, and the recruitment of 2 high-value assets within the Russian government. Marcus studied the photograph, noting how Sarah's body language and expression suggested complete comfort in what must have been an extremely dangerous situation. She was operating alone, with minimal backup. The mission required someone who could pass as a weapons dealer while gathering intelligence on Russian special operations capabilities. According to the after-action report, she exceeded all mission objectives while maintaining her cover throughout a 6-month operation. The implications were staggering. Sarah hadn't just been a CIA operative. She'd been conducting deep cover missions against sophisticated adversaries with resources to eliminate threats permanently. The woman sitting through his training exercises had survived challenges that made SEAL missions seem routine by comparison. "Why are you showing me this?" Thompson's expression grew serious. "Because someone leaked information about her presence here. Intelligence suggests Russian operators are aware that a former CIA asset is undergoing SEAL training. They may attempt to eliminate her or extract information about American special operations capabilities." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "You're telling me we have a target in my training class?" "I'm telling you that Sarah Chun represents both an incredible asset and a significant security risk. She needs to complete training and join the teams, but she also needs protection from people who view her as a threat to national security." The conversation continued for another hour, covering contingency plans and security protocols that Marcus hoped would never become necessary. When Thompson finally left, Marcus found himself staring at Sarah's training file and wondering how many other secrets it contained. The next morning brought advanced weapons training that showcased Sarah's abilities in ways that couldn't be explained by conventional military experience. The class was learning to operate foreign weapons systems they might encounter in hostile territory, and Marcus was demonstrating the basics of a captured AK-74 when Sarah raised her hand. "Chief, that particular variant has a known issue with the firing pin spring that can cause misfires after extended use. There's a field modification that addresses the problem." Marcus paused, recognizing the technical knowledge she was displaying. "And how would you know about field modifications to Russian weapons, Gunny?" "Previous training covered foreign weapons systems, Chief." She approached the weapon and quickly disassembled it with movements that spoke of extensive familiarity. Within minutes, she'd identified the exact components she'd mentioned and demonstrated the modification she described. Her explanation was clear, concise, and technically accurate. "That's impressive knowledge, Gunny," Marcus acknowledged. "Mind sharing where you received training on Soviet-era weapons modifications?" Sarah reassembled the weapon with practiced efficiency. "Here and there, Chief. You pick up things over time." But Marcus knew that level of technical expertise required hands-on experience with the weapons in question. Sarah hadn't just read about AK-74 variants in a manual. She'd used them extensively under field conditions where mechanical reliability could mean the difference between mission success and death. The realization that she'd probably carried those weapons in combat against people who'd trained their entire lives to kill American operators added another layer of complexity to their relationship. Marcus found himself wondering what other deadly knowledge Sarah possessed, and whether her presence in his class was creating risks he wasn't qualified to assess. Advanced combat training intensified over the following weeks, with exercises designed to test candidates under conditions approaching actual warfare. Sarah's performance continued to exceed expectations, but Marcus noticed she was still carefully moderating her capabilities to avoid standing out too dramatically from her classmates. During a particularly challenging close-quarters battle exercise, Marcus observed Sarah deliberately missing shots she could easily make while still maintaining performance levels that kept her ranked among the top candidates. Her tactical awareness was so advanced that she was anticipating enemy movements before they occurred, but she was hiding that capability behind the appearance of good training and natural talent. The deception bothered Marcus more than he expected. He understood why she needed to maintain her cover, but watching someone deliberately underperform felt wrong when lives would eventually depend on their capabilities. The contradiction between training for excellence and hiding true abilities created tensions he wasn't sure how to resolve. The situation came to a head during a mission simulation that required the remaining candidates to infiltrate a terrorist compound and rescue hostages before the opposition could execute their prisoners. The exercise was designed to test decision-making under extreme pressure, and failure would result in the simulated deaths of innocent civilians. Sarah's team was assigned the most challenging approach, requiring them to breach a heavily defended position while avoiding detection by sophisticated surveillance systems. The opposition forces were played by veteran SEALs who understood exactly how to exploit weaknesses in tactics and equipment. As the exercise began, Marcus monitored communication from the command center, tracking each team's progress through the compound. Sarah's team moved with exceptional coordination, but he could see they were walking into a carefully prepared ambush that would likely result in mission failure. Through his headset, Marcus heard Sarah's team leader calling for a tactical pause as they approached the trap. The young officer was competent, but lacked the experience to recognize the signs that had become obvious to Marcus's trained eye. "Contact in 60 seconds," whispered one of the team members, reporting the approach of opposition patrol units. Marcus watched Sarah's position on the tactical display and realized she could see the entire enemy deployment from her current location. Her training and experience gave her situational awareness that exceeded everyone else in the exercise, but revealing that knowledge would expose capabilities she wasn't supposed to possess. "Multiple hostiles converging on our position," reported another team member, his voice carrying the tension of someone who knew they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. The seconds ticked by as Marcus watched the tactical display show opposition forces moving into position for what would be a devastating ambush. Sarah's team was walking into a killing zone that would end their participation in the exercise and potentially result in the simulated deaths of the hostages they were supposed to rescue. At the last possible moment, Sarah's voice came through the communication system with a series of recommendations that demonstrated tactical awareness beyond anything her official training could explain. "Break right 200 meters, then north to the alternate entry point. Opposition has the primary route covered with interlocking fields of fire. Secondary route provides concealment and better angles on the target building." Her team leader paused, recognizing the validity of her assessment despite having no way to independently verify the information. "How can you be certain about enemy positions? Movement patterns and sound discipline, sir. They're good, but not perfect." The team followed Sarah's guidance and successfully avoided the ambush, completing their mission with 0 casualties among both team members and simulated hostages. Their success stood in stark contrast to the other teams, which had suffered significant losses despite following textbook tactics. During the post-exercise debrief, Marcus found himself studying Sarah's performance report and wondering how to evaluate someone whose true capabilities remained largely hidden. Her official scores reflected exceptional performance within acceptable parameters, but he knew she was operating at levels that would redefine what exceptional meant. "Outstanding work today, Gunny," he said when they had a moment alone. Sarah maintained her composed expression. "Thank you, Chief. Good teamwork made the difference." "Good teamwork," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "Right." That evening, Marcus received a secure communication from Commander Thompson requesting an immediate meeting. When he arrived at the commander's office, he found Sarah already present, along with 2 individuals he didn't recognize, but whose bearings suggested intelligence community backgrounds. "Chief Rivera, I'd like you to meet Agent Martinez from the CIA and Agent Kim from the Defense Intelligence Agency," Thompson said. "We need to discuss some developments regarding Gunnery Sergeant Chen's situation." Agent Martinez, a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, opened a briefcase and removed several photographs that made Marcus's chest tighten with concern. "These images were taken yesterday at a cafe in San Diego, approximately 12 miles from this facility," she explained. "The man in the gray suit is Pavel Konstantin, a Spetsnaz officer who specializes in eliminating former intelligence assets. The woman with him is Natasha Petrov, a GRU operative trained in deep cover assassination." The photographs showed 2 individuals who looked like tourists enjoying coffee and conversation, but Marcus could see the professional awareness in their eyes and the way they positioned themselves to observe their surroundings. "They're here for Sarah?" he asked. Agent Kim nodded grimly. "Intelligence suggests they've been tasked with either eliminating her or extracting information about current American special operations capabilities. Her presence here represents an opportunity they can't ignore." Marcus looked at Sarah, who was studying the photographs with the calm assessment of someone reviewing routine intelligence materials. "How do you want to handle this?" Sarah met his gaze directly. "We continue with training while implementing appropriate security measures, Chief. I didn't come this far to quit because someone wants to cause trouble." Agent Martinez leaned forward in her chair. "Gunnery Sergeant, these individuals are extremely dangerous. Constantine alone has been linked to the deaths of 6 former intelligence officers across 3 countries. This isn't a situation that can be resolved through standard military security protocols." "Understand the risks, ma'am," Sarah replied calmly. "But running away won't solve the problem, and I have a mission to complete here." The meeting continued for another hour, covering security arrangements and contingency plans that Marcus hoped would never be needed. When it finally concluded, he found himself walking back to his quarters with Sarah through the quiet evening air of the base. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said as they approached the intersection where their paths would diverge. "Of course, Chief. Are you planning to tell me the truth about your background anytime soon?" Sarah stopped walking and turned to face him directly. For the first time since they'd met, her carefully maintained composure showed cracks that revealed the person beneath the professional facade. "The truth is complicated, Chief. Some stories are classified at levels that make sharing them impossible, and some experiences change you in ways that make them difficult to discuss with people who haven't shared them." Marcus studied her face in the dim light from nearby buildings. "Try me." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her green eyes reflecting thoughts and memories she'd kept carefully hidden since arriving at Coronado. "The truth is that I've done things for my country that required me to become someone else entirely for months at a time. I've lived in places where one mistake would mean death or worse, and I've made decisions that affected the lives of people I'll never meet, but whose safety depended on my ability to complete missions that couldn't officially exist." She paused, her voice carrying emotions that hadn't been present during any of their previous conversations. "The truth is that I'm here because I want to serve alongside people who understand what it means to put something bigger than yourself ahead of personal safety or comfort. The SEALs represent the best of what American special operations can be, and I want to be part of that regardless of the risks involved." Marcus felt something shift in his understanding of Sarah Chun. Behind the composed exterior and exceptional capabilities was someone who'd sacrificed more than most people could imagine in service to ideals that mattered more than personal recognition or advancement. "The people hunting you, are they going to be a problem for my other candidates?" Sarah shook her head. "Their interest is specifically in me. Standard security protocols should be sufficient to protect everyone else, though increased awareness wouldn't hurt." They resumed walking, but the conversation had changed the dynamic between them in ways that would affect everything that followed. Marcus was no longer simply evaluating whether Sarah could meet SEAL standards. He was beginning to understand that she represented capabilities the teams would need for challenges they hadn't yet imagined. The training compound settled into evening quiet as they reached their respective quarters. But Marcus knew that sleep would be difficult. Sarah's presence had introduced complexities that extended far beyond traditional military training, and the knowledge that hostile operatives were actively targeting one of his candidates created responsibilities he wasn't sure he was prepared to handle. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new revelations about the woman who was quietly redefining his understanding of what it meant to be a special operations warrior. The path toward earning the Trident had become far more dangerous than either of them had anticipated, but Marcus was beginning to suspect that Sarah Chun was exactly the kind of operator the SEALs would need for the threats they'd face in an increasingly complex world. The third phase of SEAL training brought advanced tactical scenarios that pushed the remaining candidates to their absolute limits. 4 individuals had survived the grueling elimination process, with Sarah continuing to demonstrate capabilities that both impressed and concerned Marcus. The security situation had escalated, with intelligence reports confirming that Russian operatives were actively surveillancing the base perimeter. Marcus adjusted his training protocols to account for the external threats, while maintaining the intensive pace required to prepare candidates for real-world operations. The contradiction between protecting Sarah and pushing her to excel created tensions that affected every aspect of the program. During an advanced reconnaissance exercise, Marcus observed Sarah's team conducting surveillance on a mock enemy facility when his radio crackled with an emergency transmission from base security. Possible hostile surveillance detected on the north perimeter, reported the watch commander. Two individuals with professional photography equipment positioned for optimal observation of training areas. Marcus immediately ordered all teams to return to base using predetermined emergency procedures. As the candidates made their way back through carefully planned routes, he coordinated with base security to ensure their safe return without compromising ongoing operations. Sarah's team arrived last, having taken an extended route that avoided potential observation points. When Marcus debriefed them, he was unsurprised to learn that Sarah had identified the surveillance threat before the security alert and had guided her team through a counter-surveillance pattern that demonstrated intimate knowledge of advanced evasion techniques. Good situational awareness, Gunny, Marcus said after dismissing her teammates. Mind explaining how you spotted the threat so quickly? Sarah secured her equipment with practiced efficiency. Something felt off about the civilian traffic patterns, Chief. People don't usually photograph empty training grounds unless they have specific reasons. The casual dismissal of what had required significant experience to detect bothered Marcus. But before he could pursue the conversation, Commander Thompson approached with two additional intelligence officers he recognized from their previous meeting. "We need to discuss the current threat situation," Thompson said. Conference room, classified discussion. The briefing that followed painted a picture that made Marcus understand why Sarah's presence had generated such intense interest from hostile intelligence services. Agent Martinez displayed satellite images showing Russian special operations personnel positioning themselves around the base in patterns that suggested preparation for an extraction or elimination operation. "The situation has escalated beyond simple surveillance," she explained. "Intelligence indicates they're planning to act within the next 72 hours. Possibly during your scheduled night training exercise." Agent Kim added tactical details that made Marcus's stomach tighten with concern. These aren't typical intelligence operatives. Constantine and his team specialize in operations against hardened military targets. They've successfully penetrated similar facilities in 3 other countries. Sarah studied the briefing materials with professional calm that contrasted sharply with the tension visible in everyone else present. Were their most likely courses of action? Martinez highlighted several points on the tactical maps. Direct assault during training exercises when security attention is focused on candidate safety. Alternatively, a kidnapping operation designed to extract you for interrogation about American special operations capabilities. And if they can't extract me? The question hung in the air for several seconds before Kim answered grimly. Then, they'll eliminate you to prevent the integration of your capabilities into American special operations. Marcus found himself studying Sarah's reaction to learning that highly trained killers were actively planning her death. Her expression remained composed, but he detected subtle signs of someone making tactical calculations about a very dangerous situation. "We could suspend training and move you to a secure facility," Thompson offered. "Complete SEAL qualification under controlled conditions without the external threats." Sarah shook her head immediately. "That's not acceptable, sir. I came here to earn the trident the same way everyone else does. Changing the parameters now would compromise the integrity of the process." "Gunny, these people are serious threats," Marcus interjected. "This isn't about proving points. It's about staying alive long enough to serve with the teams." Sarah met his gaze directly. "Chief, with respect, I've dealt with threats like this before. Completing training under current conditions demonstrates exactly the kind of capabilities the teams need. Running away sends a message that American special operations can be intimidated by foreign threats. The debate continued for another hour, but Sarah's position remained unchanged. She would complete SEAL training according to standard protocols regardless of the risks involved. Her determination impressed Marcus even as it concerned him, but he recognized the logic behind her decision. That evening, Marcus implemented enhanced security measures that balanced candidates' safety with training requirements. The night exercise would proceed as scheduled, but with additional overwatch and emergency response capabilities that could deal with professional threats. As darkness fell over the training compound, Marcus positioned himself with the security team while Sarah's group conducted their final advanced operations exercise. The scenario required them to infiltrate a terrorist stronghold, gather intelligence, and extract without detection, a mission that closely paralleled real-world operations they might face as qualified SEALs. Through night vision scopes, Marcus tracked the 4 remaining candidates as they approached their objective using stealth techniques perfected through months of intensive training. Sarah moved with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable in darkness, her tactical awareness evident in every careful step and calculated pause. The exercise had been running smoothly for 90 minutes when Marcus's radio erupted with reports that made his blood run cold. Multiple contacts approaching from the northwest, reported the perimeter security team. At least 6 individuals moving in tactical formation with military-grade equipment. Marcus immediately activated emergency protocols while maintaining visual contact with the training exercise. The candidates were deep inside the mock facility, completely unaware that real hostiles were approaching their position with unknown intentions. All training teams, abort current exercise, and extract immediately, Marcus transmitted over the training frequency. Emergency recall, authentication Alpha 79er. Sarah's voice came back immediately, calm and professional despite the obvious danger. Copy emergency recall. Request permission to complete intelligence gathering before extraction. Negative Gunny. Immediate extraction required. But even as Marcus gave the order, he watched through his scope as Sarah and her teammates moved deeper into the facility instead of toward the extraction point. She was either ignoring his direct order or had identified something that made completing the mission more important than personal safety. The hostile contacts reached the outer perimeter of the training area just as Sarah's team emerged from the facility carrying what appeared to be the target intelligence materials. Through his night vision equipment, Marcus could see 6 figures in military gear approaching the candidate's position with weapons drawn. What happened next would be seared into Marcus's memory for the rest of his career. Sarah immediately took charge of the situation with tactical expertise that went far beyond anything taught in SEAL training. She positioned her teammates in defensive positions that maximized their limited advantages while minimizing exposure to hostile fire. When the Russians opened fire with automatic weapons, Sarah responded with precision shooting that demonstrated skills Marcus had only seen in the most experienced special operations veterans. Her return fire was accurate, disciplined, and devastatingly effective against opponents who'd expected to face inexperienced trainees. Hostile down, northeast approach, Sarah reported over the radio with the calm professionalism of someone who'd been in similar situations before. Multiple contacts still active. Marcus coordinated the response from base security while watching Sarah systematically eliminate threats that could have overwhelmed less experienced operators. Her movements showed tactical awareness that could only come from extensive combat experience against sophisticated opponents. The firefight lasted less than 10 minutes, but when it concluded, 3 Russian operatives were dead, and the remainder had withdrawn under covering fire that suggested they understood they'd encountered unexpected resistance. Sarah and her teammates were uninjured, having conducted a textbook defense against superior numbers. During the post-incident debrief, Marcus found himself struggling to reconcile what he'd witnessed with the official story that Sarah was just another candidate working to earn the Trident. Her performance under actual combat conditions had been flawless, demonstrating capabilities that exceeded those of most qualified SEALs. "Outstanding work tonight, Gunny," he said when they had a moment alone. "Your tactical leadership saved lives." Sarah cleaned her weapon with the methodical care of someone who understood that mechanical reliability could mean the difference between life and death. Good training paid off, Chief. But Marcus knew that no amount of training could account for the level of tactical expertise she displayed. Sarah had conducted herself like a veteran special operations officer with years of combat experience against sophisticated enemies. The intelligence debrief that followed revealed details about the Russian operation that made Marcus understand why Sarah's presence had generated such intense hostile interest. The operatives had been specifically tasked with eliminating or capturing her before she could complete SEAL training and join operational teams. They understood exactly what her capabilities represent, Agent Martinez explained during the classified briefing. Integrating someone with her background into American Special Operations would provide advantages they couldn't allow us to develop. Commander Thompson added strategic context that helped Marcus understand the broader implications of the night's events. This wasn't just about one former CIA operative. They were trying to send a message that integration of intelligence community assets into military special operations would be met with lethal force. Sarah's response to that message had been unambiguous. She not only survived their elimination attempt, but had inflicted casualties that would make future operations against American Special Operations personnel far more costly for Russian intelligence services. The final phase of SEAL training proceeded under enhanced security conditions that reflected the ongoing threats against Sarah's life. Marcus adjusted his evaluation criteria to account for her demonstrated capabilities while maintaining the standards that had made the SEALs legendary among special operations forces worldwide. During the culminating exercise that would determine which candidates earned the Trident, Sarah faced challenges designed to test every skill they developed over 6 months of intensive training. The scenario required her to lead a joint operation against a heavily defended target while coordinating with multiple agencies and dealing with complex political constraints. Marcus observed from the command center as Sarah demonstrated tactical leadership that integrated her CIA background with traditional military capabilities. Her ability to think beyond conventional parameters while maintaining focus on mission objectives impressed even the most experienced evaluators. When the exercise concluded, Sarah had not only met every requirement for SEAL qualification, but had exceeded performance standards in ways that redefined what exceptional meant. Her combination of intelligence community experience and military training created capabilities that would prove invaluable for the challenges facing American Special Operations. The graduation ceremony took place on a bright California morning, with Sarah standing alongside 2 other candidates who'd survived the complete training pipeline. As Marcus pinned the Trident on her uniform, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Congratulations, Petty Officer Chun," he said, using her new rank for the first time. "You've earned this." Sarah accepted the recognition with characteristic composure, but Marcus caught a glimpse of genuine emotion in her eyes that reminded him of the person behind the professional facade. "Thank you, Chief, for everything." The simple words carried weight that acknowledged the challenges they'd overcome together and the trust that had developed between instructor and student despite the complex circumstances surrounding her training. Later that evening, Marcus found Sarah on the beach near the training compound, watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. The same waters that had tested her during the most grueling phases of training now reflected the golden light of a successful completion. "Any regrets?" he asked, settling beside her on the sand. Sarah considered the question carefully before responding. "About earning the Trident? None. About the complications my presence created? Some. Your other candidates deserved to complete training without dealing with hostile threats." Marcus thought about the young men who'd train alongside Sarah, each of whom had been affected by her presence in ways that went beyond normal training experiences. "They learned things from you that weren't in any manual. Combat leadership, tactical innovation, what it means to operate under real pressure. That's valuable education. They learned that special operations attracts attention from people who want to hurt Americans," Sarah replied. "That's a lesson they needed to understand before joining the teams." The conversation continued as darkness fell over the ocean, covering topics that ranged from tactical philosophy to the changing nature of threats facing American Special Operations. Marcus found himself appreciating Sarah's perspective on challenges that traditional military training hadn't prepared him to address. "Where do you go from here?" he asked eventually. Sarah smiled for the first time since he'd known her, a genuine expression that transformed her usually serious features. "SEAL team assignments are classified, Chief, but I suspect there are missions waiting that will require someone with my particular background." Marcus nodded, understanding that Sarah's integration into operational teams would create opportunities for American Special Operations that hadn't existed before. Her combination of intelligence community experience and military training represented a new paradigm for addressing complex threats. As they walked back toward the base, Marcus reflected on the changes Sarah's presence had brought to his understanding of what it meant to train elite warriors. The future of special operations would require operators capable of thinking beyond traditional military parameters, and Sarah Chun had demonstrated exactly what that evolution would look like. The woman who'd arrived at Coronado as an enigmatic Marine had earned the Trident through demonstrated excellence under the most challenging conditions imaginable. More importantly, she'd proven that integration of intelligence community capabilities into military special operations could produce advantages that would serve American interests for years to come. The journey toward earning the Trident was complete, but Marcus suspected that Sarah's real impact on American special operations was just beginning. The teams were about to gain an operator whose capabilities extended far beyond anything their traditional training had prepared them to understand or utilize. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities for both Sarah and the SEALs to discover what could be accomplished when exceptional individuals were given the support and resources they needed to excel. The future of special operations looked very different than it had 6 months earlier, and Marcus was confident that the changes would benefit American security interests in ways that were only beginning to be understood. 6 months after earning the Trident, Sarah Chun had been assigned to SEAL Team 7, one of the most elite units within the Naval Special Warfare Command. Marcus had moved on to training new candidates, but he maintained contact with Sarah through official channels and occasional informal conversations that helped him understand how her unique capabilities were being integrated into operational teams. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Marcus was reviewing performance evaluations for his current class of candidates. Commander Thompson's voice carried the tension that accompanied urgent operational requirements. "Chief Rivera, I need you at the briefing room immediately. Classified discussion, your highest clearance level." Marcus secured his materials and made his way through the familiar corridors of the training command, noting the increased security presence that suggested something significant was developing. When he entered the briefing room, he found Sarah already present alongside several officers he recognized from Team 7's command structure. "Chief," Sarah acknowledged with a professional nod that couldn't quite hide her genuine pleasure at seeing him again. Commander Thompson activated the secure communication systems before beginning his briefing. "What I'm about to discuss doesn't leave this room. We have a situation that requires both Sarah's unique capabilities and your training expertise." The tactical display showed satellite imagery of a compound in eastern Syria that Marcus recognized as a high-value target associated with international terrorism. The facility appeared heavily defended, with security measures that would challenge even the most experienced special operations forces. "Intelligence indicates this location is being used to plan attacks against American interests worldwide," Thompson explained. "The target includes not only terrorist operatives, but also several American hostages who've been held there for the past 18 months. Agent Martinez, whom Marcus remembered from previous briefings about Sarah's situation, added details that explained why conventional military approaches wouldn't be sufficient. The facility is protected by Syrian government forces who are officially allied with Russian special operations personnel. Any overt American military action would create diplomatic complications that could escalate into broader conflict." Sarah studied the intelligence materials with the focused attention Marcus remembered from her training days. "You need a covert operation that can extract the hostages while gathering intelligence on planned attacks, without leaving evidence of American involvement." "Exactly," Thompson confirmed. "The mission requires someone who can operate in hostile territory while maintaining plausible deniability if captured." Your CIA background makes you uniquely qualified for this type of operation. Marcus felt a familiar concern that had first developed during Sarah's training. What's my role in this? Thompson highlighted several aspects of the mission that required specialized preparation. Sarah will be operating alone in territory where backup won't be available if things go wrong. We need your help developing training scenarios that prepare her for the specific challenges she'll face. The briefing continued for another hour, covering details about the target facility, enemy capabilities, and extraction procedures that would be used if the mission succeeded. When it concluded, Marcus found himself walking with Sarah through the quiet evening air of the base. "This is what you wanted when you came here," he observed. "Missions that require your full range of capabilities." Sarah nodded slowly. "It's what I trained for, both with the agency and here with the SEALs. But knowing you're ready and actually executing are different things." Marcus studied her profile in the dim light from nearby buildings. "Are you concerned about operating alone?" "Not about the tactical aspects," Sarah replied. "I've done solo operations before. But this mission combines elements that haven't been tested together. Using SEAL training for a CIA-style operation in territory where both military and intelligence approaches will be necessary." The complexity she described made Marcus understand why his involvement had been requested. Training someone to integrate multiple operational paradigms required expertise that went beyond traditional military instruction. Over the following weeks, Marcus developed specialized training scenarios that tested Sarah's ability to transition between different operational modes while maintaining mission focus under extreme pressure. The exercises were unlike anything in standard SEAL curriculum, combining elements from intelligence community training with military special operations techniques. During one particularly challenging scenario, Sarah was required to infiltrate a mock facility, gather intelligence about terrorist planning, locate and extract simulated hostages, and escape without detection by sophisticated opposition forces. The exercise lasted 72 hours and tested every skill she developed throughout her career. Marcus observed from the command center as Sarah navigated challenges that would have defeated most operators. Her ability to think beyond conventional parameters while maintaining focus on mission objectives demonstrated the integration of capabilities that made her uniquely valuable for complex operations. "She's operating at a level I've never seen," commented Lieutenant Commander James Walsh, Sarah's Team 7 commanding officer. The combination of intelligence, training, and SEAL capabilities creates advantages we didn't know were possible. When the exercise concluded, Sarah had not only completed all primary objectives, but had also identified several vulnerabilities in the facility's security that hadn't been apparent to the design team. Her after-action report included recommendations that would improve future training scenarios. "Outstanding work, Petty Officer Chun," Marcus said during their debrief. "Any concerns about the real-world application?" Sarah reviewed her performance notes with characteristic attention to detail. "The mission parameters are well within my capabilities, Chief. The main variable is how well intelligence about the target facility matches actual conditions on the ground." The statement reflected practical wisdom Marcus had learned to expect from Sarah. She understood that even perfect training couldn't account for all the variables present in real-world operations, and success would depend on her ability to adapt when circumstances differed from planning assumptions. Final mission preparation included briefings from intelligence specialists who'd been monitoring the target facility for months. Sarah absorbed information about guard rotations, communication protocols, and structural details with the focused attention of someone who understood that missing critical details could prove fatal. "The Syrian government forces are competent, but not exceptional," explained Agent Kim. "The Russian advisors represent a more significant threat, but they're primarily focused on training rather than direct security operations." Sarah asked technical questions about communications equipment, weapons capabilities, and extraction procedures that demonstrated her thorough understanding of the operational environment. Marcus was impressed by her ability to identify potential problems and develop contingency plans that addressed realistic failure scenarios. The night before her departure, Marcus found Sarah in the team room, conducting final preparations with the methodical care that had characterized her approach since arriving at Coronado. Her equipment was laid out for inspection, every item serving multiple purposes and contributing to operational flexibility. "Everything ready?" he asked. Sarah completed her equipment check before responding. "As ready as it's possible to be, Chief." Marcus settled into a nearby chair, noting the calm professionalism that masked whatever concern she might have about the mission ahead. "Want to talk about anything before you leave?" Sarah considered the question carefully before responding. "I keep thinking about the hostages. 18 months in captivity, probably given up hope of rescue. Whatever happens with the intelligence gathering, getting them home matters more than anything else." The comment revealed the personal commitment that drove Sarah's professional excellence. Behind the technical competence and tactical expertise was someone who understood that missions ultimately existed to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. "You'll bring them home," Marcus said with confidence born from observing her capabilities under the most challenging conditions imaginable. Sarah's departure took place before dawn, with minimal ceremony and maximum operational security. Marcus watched the aircraft disappear into the darkness while reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The woman who'd first arrived as an enigmatic Marine candidate had evolved into one of the most capable operators he'd ever encountered. The mission itself unfolded over 5 days, with Marcus monitoring progress through encrypted communications that provided only essential updates. Sarah's initial infiltration proceeded smoothly, but complications developed when she discovered the intelligence about facility security had been incomplete. "Guard rotations are different than briefed," she reported during her first scheduled communication, adapting approach accordingly. Subsequent updates revealed that Sarah was successfully gathering intelligence about planned terrorist attacks while locating the American hostages. Her ability to operate in hostile territory without detection demonstrated the integration of capabilities that made her uniquely valuable for complex missions. The extraction phase presented challenges that tested every aspect of her training. Sarah had to move 4 weakened hostages through hostile territory while avoiding detection by increased security forces who'd become suspicious about recent activities in the area. "Package secured, beginning movement to extraction point," she reported on the 4th day. "Opposition forces are actively searching, but haven't identified our location." Marcus coordinated with the extraction team while monitoring Sarah's progress through satellite imagery that showed her moving the hostages through terrain that would challenge healthy, experienced operators. Her tactical decisions consistently demonstrated the kind of battlefield intelligence that couldn't be taught, but had to be developed through experience. The mission concluded successfully when Sarah delivered all 4 hostages to the extraction point along with intelligence materials that provided crucial information about planned attacks against American interests. Her performance under extreme conditions had exceeded all expectations while demonstrating the value of integrating intelligence community capabilities with military special operations training. During the post-mission debrief, Sarah provided detailed information about facility security, enemy capabilities, and operational recommendations that would improve future missions. Her analysis was thorough, practical, and demonstrated the kind of professional growth that came from successfully completing challenging operations. "Exceptional work, Petty Officer Chun," Commander Thompson said during the classified briefing. "Your performance validated every assumption about the value of your unique background." Sarah accepted the recognition with characteristic professionalism. The mission succeeded because of excellent intelligence support and extraction coordination, sir. Individual performance is only one component of operational success. Later that evening, Marcus found Sarah on the beach where they'd talked following her graduation from SEAL training. The same waters that had tested her during the most grueling phases of preparation now reflected the lights from ships returning from operational deployments. "How does it feel to have completed your first official SEAL mission?" he asked. Sarah watched the waves break against the shore before responding. "Like the beginning rather than the end of something important. The integration of intelligence and military capabilities opened possibilities I hadn't fully understood before." Marcus nodded, Recognizing that Sarah's successful mission had demonstrated concepts that would influence American special operations for years to come. What's next? More complex missions that require the full range of capabilities we've developed, Sarah replied. Team 7 has received tasking for operations that specifically require someone with my background. The conversation continued as they walked along the beach, covering topics that range from tactical lessons learned to the broader implications of Sarah's successful integration into operational teams. Marcus found himself appreciating how her presence had changed his own understanding of what elite operators could accomplish when given appropriate support and challenging missions. Any regrets about leaving the CIA for military service? He asked eventually. Sarah smiled, the genuine expression Marcus had learned to recognize as a sign of her authentic thoughts rather than professional courtesy. The agency taught me to operate independently in hostile environments. The SEALs taught me the value of teamwork and institutional support. Combining both approaches creates capabilities that neither organization could develop alone. As they reached the point where their paths would diverge, Marcus reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them from instructor and student to colleagues working on some of the most challenging missions facing American special operations. The woman who showed up here 18 months ago has become something unprecedented, he observed. Sarah paused at the intersection, her expression showing the confidence that came from proven performance under extreme conditions. The training you provided made that possible, Chief. Everything that followed built on foundations established during those 6 months. The acknowledgement carried weight that reflected their shared understanding of how exceptional individuals could achieve extraordinary results when given appropriate challenges and support. Sarah's success had validated concepts about capability integration that would influence special operations training for future generations. As Sarah departed for her next mission assignment, Marcus returned to his quarters with a deep sense of satisfaction about his role in developing one of the most capable operators he'd ever encountered. The woman who'd first arrived as an enigmatic candidate with hidden capabilities had proven that the integration of diverse experiences could create advantages for American special operations that were only beginning to be understood. The future would bring new challenges and new opportunities for operators like Sarah Chun to demonstrate what could be accomplished when exceptional individuals were given the resources and support they needed to excel. The evolution of special operations capabilities would continue, but the foundation had been established through the successful integration of intelligence community experience with traditional military training. Marcus settled into his evening routine while reflecting on the remarkable transformation he'd witnessed and the knowledge that Sarah's impact on American special operations would extend far beyond any single mission or operation. The woman who'd quietly revolutionized his understanding of elite warrior capabilities was now applying those skills to protect American interests in ways that would remain classified, but would undoubtedly save lives and prevent attacks against innocent people worldwide. The journey from student to operator was complete, but the larger story of how Sarah Chun would influence the future of special operations was just beginning. Marcus was confident that story would include achievements that would redefine what was possible when exceptional individuals were given the opportunity to serve their country using the full range of their capabilities.